For years, the old Victorian mansion at the edge of town had been nothing more than a fading landmark, peeling wallpaper, dusty rooms, and secrets swallowed by time. But on the day police arrived for a routine safety sweep before an estate auction, something unimaginable happened. Shadow, the department's most reliable K9, suddenly stiffened, growled, and lunged at an ordinary-looking wall. Refusing to move, officers assumed it was a mouse or stray scent until Shadow began barking with frantic desperation. Moments later, the truth behind that wall unraveled, a 50-year mystery the entire town had forgotten, and exposed a secret someone hoped would stay buried forever. The estate sale had drawn quiet attention. An old Victorian mansion, inherited by distant relatives who barely remembered its history. Before the public could enter, police were asked to perform a standard sweep. It was supposed to be simple: clear the rooms, check for hazards, and leave. But Shadow knew better. The K9 trotted beside his handler, Officer Harris, sniffing corners, dusty curtains, and untouched hallways. Nothing unusual until they reached the back study, a room preserved like a moment trapped in time. Heavy bookshelves, draped furniture, and the scent of aged wood. Suddenly, Shadow froze. His ears shot forward, his tail stiffened. A low growl vibrated in his chest. "Shadow, easy," Harris murmured. But Shadow wasn't listening. With abrupt force, he lunged toward the far bookshelf, barking, clawing, snarling at nothing visible, the kind of alert that made every officer straighten. 2 officers rushed in. False alarm. Harris shook his head. Shadow doesn't false alert, ever. The caretaker, an elderly woman who had inherited the estate, looked baffled. "That shelf has been there longer than I've been alive," she insisted. "There's nothing behind it but wall." Shadow disagreed. He pawed harder, sending dust swirling into the air and knocking an antique book to the floor. His bark echoed like a warning. Harris crouched and tapped the wood. It sounded hollow. Now everyone felt an invisible tension threading through the room. They emptied the bookshelf. Books thumping to the floor one by one. Scratch marks on the floorboards caught an officer's eye. Someone had moved this shelf before. Recently, the men exchanged uneasy glances as they pushed the heavy bookshelf aside. It groaned, shifted, and revealed a thin wooden panel. Old but not original to the house. A hiding place. A pocketknife slid into the seam. One small pop, and the panel opened. Inside sat a rusted metal box, wrapped in cobwebs and silence. The latch crumbled in their hands. Inside were black and white photographs, delicate jewelry, and an old leather journal with pages so fragile they crackled with each turn. But the final page stole the air from the room. A date, a name, a confession. Clara Whitmore, missing since 1973. A cold case the town had long buried under rumors and faded newspaper clippings. No one will ever find her, not as long as this house stands. The caretaker gasped. Officers stood frozen. The reality settled like ice in their bones. Clara hadn't run away. She hadn't disappeared into the night. She had been hidden. The handwriting belonged to Gerald Whitmore, her fiancé, and the mansion's original owner. Detectives left immediately. Hours later, they sat across from Gerald in a quiet care facility. At 83, his frail hands trembled when they placed the journal before him. She was screaming. "I lost control," he whispered, tears filling his clouded eyes. "I panicked. I buried her. I buried her where no one would ever look." The next morning, a warrant in hand, officers returned to the mansion. Shadow led the way straight into the basement, nose twitching, body rigid. He barked once low, certain, at a cracked corner of the concrete floor. Forensic teams began to dig. Minutes became hours. Then, a hollow thud. The concrete gave way to a shallow cavity. A scrap of fabric emerged. A bracelet, then bones. Jewelry still resting where a neck once was. Dental records confirmed it. Clara Whitmore had been found. The 50-year-old mystery was finally over. News spread through town like wildfire. Crowds gathered outside the old mansion, whispering Clara's name, remembering the girl who vanished decades earlier. Gerald Whitmore was charged with murder, though his declining health meant he never faced trial. He passed quietly in his sleep, weeks later, perhaps for the first time, without the weight of his secret. And Shadow, he stood silently during the final sweep, tail still, eyes steady. He hadn't just discovered a hidden box, not just a confession, not just clues. He had given a forgotten woman her voice back. He had delivered justice 50 years too late, but no less powerful.